Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls, to my Saturday chat. Today, I'm going to continue to share with you some interpretations, just a general rambling of the Mythologia Fennica, Greenwood Tarot, and the Margaret Peterson. And today, we're going to start the major arcana. And this gets very kind of challenging, especially with the Mythologia Fennica. There's a lot of mythology that is integrated into these cards and interconnections. And so I'm hoping that I can just weave the story. And by the time we get to the, through all of these, that a lot of these characters' names can begin to make more sense. Now, I know from time to time when we were going through the minors that it was, that I did bring in some of the majors. And so some of the names are kind of familiar, but I don't know. I feel like this is going to take me a while to be able to work with Mythologia Fennica confidently as a reading deck, as all of this mythology is very, very, very new to me. So I don't have any new decks to share with you today, so I'm going to be diving right into this, and I want to offer you a warm welcome to Donna and Mary Beth, who are live here today on this rainy Saturday, rainy for me anyway, and looks like it's raining for Mary Beth as well too. So very happy that I managed to get 2 cameras going today. So just playing with technology is a constant thing. If you're new to this channel, my name is Sadhana, and I've been reading for some time. Love talking about the tarot, reflecting on the tarot, and all of this. So welcome to this discussion. If you're new to these decks that are on the table, these cards, this is the Fool and the World from Mythologia Fennica by Susanna Salo. And then we have the Fool and the World Tree from the Greenwood Tarot. This is from the original edition. And on the bottom, we have Margaret Peterson, Fool and World. Now, why these 3 decks? Well, oh my goodness, I don't know. It's sort of convoluted how this all began. Began with the minors. And the initial reflection was, what's going on in some decks where it feels like there's a lot of fiery energy in the swords and vice versa. And I think by the time I got to the end of the suit of swords and the suit of wands, what I really found was that as a reader, you can't really separate this energy, and you need to start looking at the tarot as more of a whole composite, a beautiful mandala of lessons and teachings, and to try to find really strict, independent interpretations for any of the cards really doesn't serve in any way. So this mandala of story continues with the majors. Welcome, Dee. Lovely to have you here as well. Very wet in the UK. Okay, so we're all kind of in this wet place. I don't know what it's doing in Donna's part of the world, but let's share some sunshine with this discussion. So the Fool card. We're looking here at an egg, and here we have a transformational butterfly. I know the colors of this deck don't show up well. I also have a large window at my face here too, so that's a little bit better. It's quite a beautiful card, and I'm really intrigued with the energy that is behind the Fool, whether this is picking up on a she glyph perhaps, or this is indeed a reflection of the labyrinth that we see at the base of the World Tree. And in Margaret Peterson, this is so interesting, this world within worlds. It's almost like we are capturing a little piece of the greater cosmos. And look how stormy the sea is in the outer picture. And you can kind of see we have the gold and the sun and the moon reflected in this card as well too. So we're looking at a whole picture, but there certainly is an energy of air and water here. And you can see perhaps a familiarity with this Fool card, an white animal of sorts behind a fool that is about to leave a cliff. This is not a dog, it's a hind. And that is an animal that appears throughout this deck as well as the Wildwood Tarot. So I will read the poems from these decks and read you a little bit of the story. Okay. World Tree. I guess we can look at this as well too. So world tree. And here to me, I'm seeing a little bit, I've got the labyrinth going on as well too. I can certainly see the labyrinth here. Almost like a dragon overhead, a fiery energy unfolding. And one of the things that each of these creators talks about in the world card is the idea of bridge. And that's a really interesting word to add to your keywords for the completion on major arcana. So I wanted to look at these cards as full circle. Some of you know that. Oh, before I do that, notice how in the Greenwood Tarot, the Fool is facing in the direction that we see in the older decks, in the Tarot of Marseille. Whereas the Margaret Peterson and the Mythologia Fennica take the energy going in more of a Waite Smith direction. So that's something that you might want to look at in your decks, is to see whether if there is an alignment of facings with older decks or with Golden Dawn sort of facings. Yeah, loving this chat that's going on here. And I'm the only face that you can see. It would be lovely to have all of your faces on here one day. And we can do that. If you want to all appear in, you could all, whoops, where's my finger? Yeah, you could all appear in little boxes around the screen. And we could all chat as well too. If you're game for that, let me know. Because I would be happy to have a Saturday discussion where there's lots of faces on the screen. All right, so I guess that's a bit of a preamble. Let's start with Mythologia Fennica. And I have lots of other majors on the table to try to make sense of all of this. And according to Amelia, who gifted me this deck, my pronunciation is not bad, but again, I, as always, apologize for my fumbling through foreign language pronunciation. It is told in the Kalevala, so we're here, okay? So with this egg, that the world originated from the egg of a diving duck. Ilmatar, who, interestingly, is the Queen of Swords, the female spirit of air, descended from the sky to the primordial sea, Sarajas, transforming into the female spirit of the water. She swam through the endless waves when a diving duck, searching for a place for her nest, flew past and spied the spirit's knee emerging from the sea. The bird built its nest on the knee and laid 6 golden and 1 iron egg and began to hatch. Right away, you are funny, Dee. Right away, one thing that comes to mind is here we are with this beautiful intersection of air and water. And another example of how the tarot is combining elements to help us, perhaps, to reflect on deeper understandings of these archetypes. So, yes, we could say that the Fool is primordial air. It is a card that is the element of air. And yet, look at what Margaret Peterson has done here with the stormy sea. And we also have the sea reflected in a way in the world tree. And I don't mean to belabor this point, yet it's such an important one that we begin to literally, widen our eyes and see. It's like if you could see what's the word? Not a veil, like a filter of a filter over the tarot that is just this beautiful web, this beautiful mandala, like you might see in some of the Wheel of Fortune cards in some of the decks that we have in our libraries. What is Donna saying here? There's a strange similarity resonance between the Margaret Peterson world and the Queen of Swords in the Finnish deck. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Okay, so let's go on with this duck story. I was really intrigued that it started with eggs of gold and one iron egg. And you probably are aware, so the number 1 card in this deck is a smith. Ilmarinen is a smith. And we'll get to that card in a second. But it just makes me think that there's this connection between this iron egg and the smith. And it's not connected in the guidebook at all. It's just something that's coming to mind. Ilmatar felt how her knee began to warm up and moved it, and the eggs rolled into the water and shattered. The different layers and fundamental things of the world formed from one egg, and that is why the newborn world was a coherent entirety. According to another tale, in the beginning there was only the primordial sea where the diving duck swam. The bird dove to the bottom and brought back earth from which the solid land was then formed. And this is really interesting. Okay, let's move Ilmatar out of there. So Ilmatar is the water, right? And Ilmatar is the mother, and she is Queen of Swords. So this card, which is the first arcanum, which we will get to in a little bit, but I just want to read this to you. When the cosmos was created, Ilmarinen forged the celestial sphere and adorned it with stars. So there's this really interesting connection between these cards, that together the 0 and the 1 are a part of the creation of the cosmos and the world. And so Susanna Sala goes on to talk about the sea and the what do you call it? The metaphors, the symbolism for each of the parts of this. And so we're looking at the water and the sea and the air of the duck and the bird and so forth. And I'm having this other thought. Now, my Wildwood Tarot is not in order, but wouldn't it be nice if this card was right near the top? Do you know the Moon card in the Wildwood Tarot, where there is this egg in the water? And this is just kind of reminding me of this. I suppose I could look at the moon in the greenwood. But look, doesn't that kind of look similar? And what did they do with the moon in the greenwood? And I said to you that I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison of these ones. It's there too. Here it is. Look. Very similar looking, that the moon has this iconography as well. And so Susanna Salo, so that is this deck, she goes on to say that one needs to have faith in all that comes together to create something. She talks about a leap of faith and an honoring of sorts of all of the creative forces that come together for these new experiences that are represented by the energy of the Fool card. Margaret Peterson in her poem, so if you don't know Margaret Peterson, there are short poems for each of the majors and no other descriptions. You are young and far away from home. A glittering crack, heaven, sun, and clouds, and foaming waters, the elements at play. Blue breath. Risk finding the way to yourself. Engage yourself where chaos begins, where you stand alone and without help, facing life. And Susanna Salo uses that word chaos as well. She says that chaos, that the sea, the primordial sea, represents chaos. So interesting that that word is used in both of these decks. I don't think I ever use the word chaos when it comes to that description. I'm almost seeing more chaos here, but Margaret Peterson in the World card uses also an unfamiliar viewpoint. She says that this card is the last sign before nothingness. So it's almost as if we move from, there's a pause, if you will, between the World card and the Fool. There's a great grand unknown of sorts. What I meant to say earlier is that if we're working with an older deck, so one that puts the Fool in this direction, and the Fool is an unnumbered card, the Fool then is often placed as at the end of the major arcana. We begin with the 1 and end with the Fool. And sometimes, of course, the Fool is numbered 22. And if you're doing any numerological calculations with the majors, you have that choice in a reading, really, to mark the Fool as a 0, or count the Fool as a 0, or count the Fool as a 22. So it's really interesting to look at the relationships among these cards. I want to talk about the fire in the back of this card because it's kind of interesting. Also, look at the energy around the world tree here in this card. There is, and you can't see it on the camera, but there is a door on this world tree, like there is on the world tree in the wild wood tarot. Susanna Salo talks about all kinds of things, including chakras and the main trunk here representing the spine. So there's a lot that is built into the energy of the tree of life in Mythologia Fennica. And she really does expand and talk about how this is a universal symbol through many, many cultures. Some kind of tree of life motif is an integral part of almost every mythology. And she talks about Christian tradition, the great ash Yggdrasil that connects the 9 worlds, and at the center of Siberian and Finno-Ugric peoples' worlds, there was a world pillar, which held aloft the heavens and was sort of a branchless world tree, backbone of the cosmos. And according to the old sage, Kaisa Vilhunen, the world was held in place by a golden column that had a copper base and a golden knob at the top. This knob, of course, the North Star. And the North Star is the star card in this deck. And around it was a wheel on top of which the celestial sphere turned around. Let's go on here. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some other major cards here so we can weave this story. Ancient Finnish poems also include different depictions of a tree of life. In our folklore, the sacred world tree is a birch or an oak. Sometimes the birch is depicted being on fire, with a fiery eagle sitting on its top. The same bird, where did he go? Here we go. The same bird that Lemminkainen had to face on his way to Pohjola. The tree of life was told to grow at an island that was surrounded either by a river or by the primordial sea, which this is here. The tree grew on top of a world mountain at the center of a well or a spring that can be seen as the source of life, and the tree's roots burrowed 9 fathoms deep. The tree's crown reached to the heavens, and on its top was told to be a golden cradle, which was used to lower the souls that were born on the tree's branches down to earth. Around the cradle was also a great gathering place of souls and the gateway to the world of gods. Rainbow was the bridge that connected these worlds. And these tales, these yarns. Yes, Donna, you're right. So in the Wildwood Tarot anyway, the star card is the pole star. So part of understanding and learning the myths of this deck, I think it's really helpful to pull in and out the other cards and the connections. So Lemminkainen is the Emperor card here. Susanna talks about fulfillment. But if you look at this card and you look at the shape, the way that the world tree is held in this circle, it's very similar to what's going on here. Like there's a passageway to move through. And that really intrigues me in listening to the poem in Margaret Peterson's poem. I'll read it in entirety now. That there is a a bit of a pause that follows the world card. There is a place of unknown. And this makes me think about the importance of interpreting the world card as both a place of honoring the sense of completion. And in many people's eyes, there's a bit of or hearts, there's a bit of fear of this card because it does indicate a portal of sorts that we are moving through and moving on. Circling at the far end, fragile patterns of life. Dissolve in the flickering light, internal rhythm of slow moving waves. So there's this contrast between the rather chaotic waves of this card and the slow moving waves of this card, though it does also look rather chaotic. I see a dragon here, which we see in the Strength card, among others in this deck. And also the symbol of the Ouroboros, the circling of energy, feels very prominent in this painting. Bound to no order, filled with the spirit of the wind, a figure appears, unveiled, dancing into the center, to the point, the last sign before nothingness. And then I think of, now this takes me way back, but there's certain writings from certain decks that really stick. And that was the wheel card in Osho Zen. And the Osho Zen wheel is really interesting. But the big lesson of the wheel card, which is often compared to this card, certainly there are a lot of similarities between the 10th Arcanum and the 21st, is that it is at the center that we find the peace. And if we remain on the outside, if we remain in the black, if we dare not enter into the center and walk through that door, we remain in a place of chaos. So there's this invitation to move to the center, to move to this place of calm, to move to a place a lot less frenetic in order to find peace. But I like this idea of a passageway of sorts, that we're going to be in a bit of a process here before we emerge into the next chapter. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to say more than that right now. Let's look at the first and second arcana. So we have Ilmarinen, and then we have the mother of Lemminkainen. And remember, Lemminkainen, have we had that one out yet? No, we haven't. So Lemminkainen is the mythology, the figure that we see in the Strength card, which in this deck is number 8. Okay, so that's 1 and 2 in this deck. And then we have 1 and 2. This is 2. And it's a lot harder to see. I think it's easy to look at this greenwood seer and not notice the human face just over here. And if you think about it that way, the seer and the wildwood is quite similar. You see this cloak. And then the one is the shaman. In the Margaret Peterson, it is called magic. And And the second arcanum is called High Priestess. So let's start with 1. Let's start with 1. Another important way to understand the greenwood and the wildwood is to be familiar with the wheel. And this is one thing that is similar, or same actually. I've got this turned the wrong way. Do I? No, this way. Okay. Summer solstice is on the top of this wheel, and winter solstice is on the bottom of the wheel. And if you're working with the greenwood, it's laid out exactly the same way. Imbolc is here and Beltane. So the wheel is laid out the same way. It's just some of the card associations are different in the 2 decks. However, it's the same for this. So we have this reflection. The world tree and the fool reflect one another in the center of the wheel. The world tree with the upper half and the fool with the lower half. And the shaman and the seer reflect the east and the west, or the left side and the right side of the wheel. So the shaman and the seer reflect each other. And I know often we don't look at or compare the first and the second, but there is it's a really interesting way. And I know it's hard when you're looking at, you've got in mind a white smith, or even a Tarot de Marseille magician, or magus and priestess. But there's something about the way that they view the world. Ooh, let's go back. There's a question here. Do we all accept the world card might not be the last card? Why not judgment? That would come last. I love these questions. This reminds me of something that Marie White wrote. So this is a little bit that is just before the world card. And Marie writes a couple of paragraphs that says, "The fool traverses the landscape of the abyss." And she talks about the position of the fool. And so this really is part of this discussion of where the world card comes. And I know, right, Dee, there are decks where judgment indeed comes last. And like our discussion, of minors and their lack of fixity in terms of elemental association, the interpretation in a reading, the experience of the major arcana is certainly not a linear one. Our journey is not from 0 to 21. And I think as I move cards around in the Mythologia Fennica, it's really interesting to lean into and feel all of these associations. You get a little bit of that in the Greenwood Tarot, and certainly you really have to stretch your mind to do it with the Margaret Peterson, but I think it's also important, right? We don't need to get stuck on that the world card is the last card. It's part of an unfolding. It's like looking at X, 10, 10, wheel, XX, judgment, and looking at them as sort of layers reflecting each other. Thank you for that reminder, Dee. Okay, Ilmarinen. It is. It's just such a wonderful tool. And this is such a cool card. Can you see the sitar here? I'll read the poem so you remember what all those little bits are. Okay, so let's go to Ilmarinen. And I do this just for this is just me babbling on with my trying to figure all this out. Ilmarinen, the heroic smith of Kalevala, was one of 3 brothers to whom Ilmatar gave birth at the time of creation. Okay, so Ilmatar is represented as the Queen of Swords as part of the creation story. Ilmarinen is one of 3 brothers, and those show up in this deck in the 1st, 4th, and 8th arcana. These 3 are brothers, 1, 4, and 8. Kind of cool that she placed them at 4 and 8. If you think of the connections between 4 and 8. Yeah. Okay. Ilmarinen was the second born, Vainamoinen being the eldest and Lemminkainen the youngest. Ilmarinen was an old god of air. So this card here. So we're looking also at the element of air, which corresponds for sure to the magician, if you're thinking of Mercury associations and so forth, who controlled the weather and storm winds, which were born when he fanned the flames of his forge. So how cool is this? Because how many of you look at the magician card and go, this is not an air card. This is such an active card. It's masculine. It's fiery. It's a card of doing and using your resources. And again, here we are with so many intersections. He was the protector of travelers. Well, we all know that Mercury was also the god of travelers. So here we have another cultural intersection. When the cosmos was created, Ilmarinen forged the celestial sphere and adorned it with stars. In the tales of Kalevala, Ilmarinen is a mighty blacksmith who forged wondrous things from practically nothing. Okay, I feel like I'm doing a puppet show here. Louhi. For Louhi, the mistress of Pohjola, he made and try. Okay, I'm going to say these sentences again in another way. So Ilmarinen, for Louhi, the mistress of Pohjola, he made the Sampo in exchange for the hand of her beautiful daughter, the maid of Pohjola. Okay, so this is just, this one sentence is just whoa. So this brings in a connection here between the Empress and Temperance. Sampo, which is what Ilmarinen created, is Wheel of Fortune. So if I were sitting with my journal and trying to digest this sentence, I would most definitely be doodling here. I'm going to read that sentence again. For Louhi, the mistress of Pohjola, Ilmarinen made the Sampo in exchange for the hand of her beautiful daughter, the maid of Pohjola. To succeed in the arduous task that Louhi gave him, he forged himself a fiery eagle and a golden plough, which he used to catch the great pike of Tuonela, which is another card in the deck, which we saw as the 10 of Cups. Okay, so this is a very resourceful magician. And he also began to make a shackle for Louhi, who had hidden the heavenly lights inside Pohjola's stone hill. Upon seeing what Ilmarinen was forging, the terrified Louhi released the lights to shine again to all creation. It is told in Kalevala that when Ilmarinen began to forge the wondrous Sampo, he didn't have tools, a forge or a smithy. There was not one handle of a hammer to be found in all of Pohjola. Furthermore, Louhi had ordered what materials Ilmarinen could use, and they were as unsuitable as could be. So this was a great challenge that this mother put up, rather fierce-looking mother put up for the hand of her daughter. But nevertheless, Ilmarinen began to work, as impossible as it seemed, for he had something that is required from a true magician. He was able to forge concrete wonders founded on his own visions. He was able to forge concrete wonders founded on his own visions, and he made skillfully use of all 4 elements. He could execute his ideas on a concrete level. He was the enforcer of visions and fantasies, who controlled his thoughts so well that ideas materialized and refined themselves to their full glory in his hands. So, wow, some kind of magician was he, right? Maybe magician shaman is mixed elementally. They use all the elements to perform their works. Okay, and the connections here just go on and on, because if you think of the energy of shaman and the role of shaman, first of all, as healer, shaman as healer, and the ability of the shaman to transform, to transfigure, in order to help someone with their journey. And this ability to transform, to transfigure, is one also that Ilmarinen most definitely had. This hood is really interesting. I think this is the feet. This is the feet of the animal skin that the shaman is wearing. that look a bit like antenna connecting to above. And that inversion is also really interesting, because if you know a thing or two about the tree of life, there are a lot of discussions about, which is the root, which are the roots and which are the branches. And in some illustrations of the tree of life, you'll see the roots going up, where the right crown chakra, where the Ketar, going up above Ketar. And down in Malkut, you'll see the leaves, the material part, right? The part that we see, the part that dies. But the roots are up at the crown. Shaman. Should I read? It's virtually identical, the guidebook for the greenwood and the wildwood. It's basically just repeated. But I'm going to read the greenwood, because just in case it's a little different. Something I haven't done didn't even occur to me to think about this side of the tree as left and this side of the tree as right. But isn't that interesting that the seer is on the right and the shaman's on the left? And you know what? This goes back to, okay, let's get a High Priestess card. High Priestess. Because you will see this in some Chariot cards, High Priestess cards. So what Waite and Smith chose to do here is to put the black on the left as we see it, rather than putting it on the left hand of the High Priestess or the left hand of the Charioteer. Now, granted, these pillars are the entrance to the temple, and as we enter the temple, the black is on the left and the white is on the right. But this inversion of masculine and feminine is really something interesting to contemplate. The shaman is on the left-hand path, female. Yeah. So we have an inversion of relationship here. Okay, I was looking for a couple of sentences from the shaman card in the Greenwood Guidebook, which is organized in this really weird way. They're not presented in order, and you'll also notice that the cards are not numbered. And I wonder, in the new version of the Greenwood, if the major arcana will be numbered. And that also, think about that. If we don't number the major arcana, then we're not committing to a particular order. It says something in that they're all kind of intersecting. They're all part of this wheel. They're all part of this mysterious mandala. The shaman looks from the card with eyes that are both clear and open, and yet there is something ancient and profound with his steady gaze, given a pronoun, okay? He is wrapped in a bear skin that is adorned with curious Paleolithic paintings of animal spirits taken from La Caverne des Trois Frères Ariège. In one, a human form is wearing a bison skin and is playing a bow, appearing to dance to the music. In the other, an antlered, owl-headed creature looks out from the image. What complex spiritual concept of Paleolithic artists were trying to express is a mystery. We only know that their view of the universe could envisage a place where many human elements and skills were intimately interwoven with the qualities and prowess of wild creatures. Perhaps even human spiritual welfare was interdependent on an empathic exchange and respect for the sacred ancestral memory of all life, and mediation of the totem guardians and deities was a prime spiritual function of the shaman. The shaman holds 4 representative tools for the 4 elements of the world. This is a gateway card, offering illumination of the labyrinth of the inner universe and the other world, of the universal mind. The shaman's unique quality, though, is the ability to enter and commune with all levels of sentient life on the earth. So in a way, if we compare the qualities of the seer with the shaman, and I think you'll find this in, even though this looks like there's a connection to the animal world, the shaman connects us to the earth, where the seer connects us, this is kind of blowing my mind here. The seer connects us to the mysteries. To the mysteries. What is Donna saying here? Imagine each major card as a rubber band, and then see them all wrapped around each other in a big rubber band ball, interchangeable and not a linear order. It's so cool. And so what I'm trying to wrap my tongue around here is this relationship between inner and outer, and is one grounded and one cosmic, or are they both? And I think that just really kind of speaks to what Donna's envisaging here, that they are both. While one may feel more mysterious, what shaman or magician doesn't give us a feeling of all of that? I'm going to read the poem from Magic. Sun winds are stroking the strings of a sitar. So we have fire, air. The song of birds, the air is vibrating, pulsating. Through the mask it sounds I am, or Om. Soul glides into body. Soul glides into body. Ever new self-creation. Knowing the essence of the elements, fire, earth, air, water, the lively dance of sounds, remembering oneness, audible breath, I am. Om. So there's this ability here to create a oneness of all being. And isn't that powerful, that one, if you think of one, that the magician represents oneness, all elements, all beings, the intersection of all elements and all beings. Hi, Saskia. Welcome. How very cool is that? Now, let's think about sound as a primordial element, right? I am that I am. I am that I am. And I'm just thinking of a particular pre-meditation practice, and a japa jap. It's called a japa jap, where you move energy through your body, inhaling and exhaling, repeating a mantra. I am that I am. So hum. And this, for me, is bringing sort of another level of awareness between the spiritual and the workings of this arcanum. If the magician brings it all together, then does the high priestess begin to teach us what it looks like apart? Just a question. Just thinking. Sorry, dead airspace. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. I was going to just sort of look at 1 versus 2, but I'm going to come back to that next week. And the way that I'm going to discuss the major arcana is in comparing and contrasting cards. So I'll bring out the 1 and we'll look at the 3 and the 4 in comparison next week as well too, and just carry on in this manner. So much to think about. Thanks for joining us, and to all of you and those of you that are watching replays and in the background, it's just a pleasure to have you here, and I love hearing your comments after the live chat has concluded. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you soon. Namaste. You're welcome.